There is a petition to call a general election, and this petition's only been going for a short while, and it's already...
Yesterday.
It was yesterday, yes. And at the time of recording, it's over 2 million, and it's been ticking up quite a bit. When I looked at it this morning, at 22 minutes past 10, it was at 1,965,780. So it's gone up a considerable amount since then, because at the time of the recording, it's 1 minute past 1. That is quite a few signatures, and I think that this is going to tick up. I don't think it's going to, necessarily break records.
I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, this is just...
It's entirely possible, but
nobody really wants any kind of petition with 2 million signatures against their name under any circumstances. It's just never a good sign. If 2 million people feel motivated enough to sign a petition, which isn't a great amount of effort, but it is some effort, well, then you're doing something wrong, right? That's...
And actually, you did a video recently, Carl, on our new channel. If my Stream Deck will allow me to have a look at it. Here we are.
Yes.
Nice portrait of Keir Starmer there.
Well, I mean, it's just an accurate photo.
But
AI generated.
He's pretty much at war, Keir Starmer, with everyone, isn't he?
Yeah.
As you've rightfully said here. And since he's been in office, he's picked fights with lots of people. Just pensioners,
who hasn't
farmers.
Picked fights with? The VAT runners against the middle class, calling the working class far right because of their opposition to the Southport stabbings. Then you've got like Jeremy Clarkson, Donald Trump, Elon Musk. Like the list just keeps going on and on and on. And so it's like, okay, Keir, I mean, he's going to be picking a fight with local councils next. He wants to centralise councils into essentially vast mega conglomerates. So it's one every 500,000 people.
Well, makes it easier to cram more foreigners in, which is the one group that he hasn't attacked, which is
they're
interesting. Yeah,
one of the few client groups that he actually is keeping. But like so the local council will become more remote from the average person. So it's a direct attack on the shires themselves. And it's like, okay, what are you not at war with? The farmers, like everyone.
He even said he would raise university fees. Yeah. Which is hilarious because the one people he could have relied on were university students.
Yes.
And he may have alienated his base a little bit further soon enough as well.
He doesn't seem to think he needs a base.
No.
There's no one on Starmer's side at this point.
Well, also he just
Very
doesn't
strange.
think. I mean, remember that he admits that he never dreams.
Yes.
He's just come out and said he doesn't have a favourite Christmas movie. I mean, the man just simply has no personality, thoughts or feelings whatsoever.
I mean, he did say he didn't have a favourite movie, book or poem. But like,
oh right. Okay.
So I mean, that was ages ago. But say, oh yeah, I also don't have a favorite Christmas movie. Like,
yes,
the answer is obviously Home Alone.
No, it's Gremlins.
Yes, I agree. Gremlins is my favourite.
A lot of people will say Die Hard as well.
Close second.
Yeah. But the point is, everyone's got a favourite Christmas movie, apart from a literal NPC who happens to find himself in charge of the country.
So, one thing I did find interesting is where the signatories have come from, and a lot of these are...
So the more pink it is, the more people densely the denser the signatures.
Yes, and so it's a lot up north here, and in the countryside. Basically, the areas that haven't signed it very much are London,
and diverse areas.
Birmingham, maybe
Luton.
Manchester.
Yes.
Yes. But pretty much everywhere else.
It's the diverse areas where the client groups are that aren't signing it. This is literally a communist revolution that we're living through. And I bet if you were to overlay this on a Brexit map, it'd look basically identical, because what Brexit was essentially an English revolution against globalism. And this appears to also be an English protest against globalism.
And if you look at places like around Essex here, places that vote Reform a fair amount, these are some of the highest percentage of supporters. But surprisingly...
Brexit areas of signing this petition.
But most places are between 4 and 5. Some are 3% of the entire electorate signing this petition. But I think it might well average out at around 4%, which for a petition started yesterday is pretty good.
Yeah, if that was in 6 months' time, you'd be like, well, that was significant. No, it was yesterday.
4% of the electorate
in
one day.
Apparently, you only... No, I'm not going to carry on saying what I was going to say.
I mean, broadly, if 2 million people are willing to drop whatever they're doing to tell you that they hate you, probably means something.
Because this isn't like a pollster come in and say, do you like Keir Starmer? No, and then carry on with your day. Yeah. No, hang on, I'm going to sort this petition out. I hate Keir Starmer.
Dear Keir Starmer, F you.
Yeah, basically.
You've got to fill out a form, and everyone in Britain hates that. So
I mean, you've got to give your address.
That's true, yeah. And it's also worth mentioning as well that Sky News... had some opinion polling, which actually put Nigel Farage above Keir Starmer at the minute.
Well, I'm not surprised. Like, Nigel Farage is hated by about half the country because woke propaganda, but he's loved by about a third of the country, or 28% of the country. But they're like his hardcore fan base. Keir Starmer doesn't have a hardcore fan base.
It's difficult to be enthusiastic for what is the equivalent of, a legalistic process. Well, that's all he is.
Yeah.
In a sense, isn't he?
Yeah. Just
no thoughts or feelings. Just
the regional manager for Globalism Inc.
Exactly.
He did get a shout out from all those violent prisoners that were released. They thanked him by name.
Prisoners love him.
Prisoners and foreigners love this
Criminals.
So that's 23% of the country, right? Okay.
Also, he picked a fight with Elon Musk, and now Elon Musk is more popular than Keir Starmer in Britain.
Doesn't take much.
I think 5 points lower than Elon Musk now.
Okay.
And think of all the leftists that must hate Elon Musk in Britain as well. So he must be doing something wrong there. And it's also worth mentioning as well, the person that started the petition, if he wanted to dismiss this as political point scoring, this was started by the owner of a pub who would obviously have a good reason to be angry at him. And I'm going to read from this article directly. It says, he said his fury was sparked in particular by Rachel Reeves's budget, which despite promising 1 pence off of a pint will actually hike booze costs for pub punters thanks to the rise in minimum wage and hikes to national insurance, which everyone knew. Yeah. The 1 penny up, the 1 penny off of the pint was just insulting. It was salt in the wound. Yeah, so exactly.
It's nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Because the prices would go up anyway. Yeah. And this also has the backdrop of some of the farming tax scandals. So there was this story, BBC Verify used Labour activists to back government's claim on farm inheritance tax.
And it keeps getting worse, this farmer's story. I saw the other day that we're raising whatever it is, 500 million from it, and they've just pledged most of that money to Ukrainian farmers.
Yep. Yeah, British farmers, forget about it.
Yeah,
but,
it's like when
foreign farmers are great.
There's a 22 billion budget black hole. Okay, what are you can do? We're going to assign 22 billion for carbon capture. Mm-hmm. What's happening, man?
Yeah, they're spending more of our money abroad than ever. So it's worth mentioning that the claim he backed particularly was that only about 500 estates a year would be affected, and then the Country Land and Business Association claimed that actually it would be around 70,000 farms. Which is a bit of a disparity. I'm not sure if any of you are good at maths.
Well, even if it isn't 100% right now, I mean, remember when income tax was brought in? It affected like 2% of the population. Now it affects everybody. So inflation will get you to the point where everybody is paying it.
But also, this is just a lie. I mean, I saw, have I got news for you? Ian Hislop was just blatantly lying. You say, it's only going to be 3 million or more. No, it's 1 million, it says in the budget. And the average farm in the UK is worth about 3 million. So about 2/3 of farms are going to be affected by this, according to their own numbers. And there may be some sort of arcane, legalistic way of navigating through it, but I'm sure the average farmer doesn't know what that is. And I'm sure they know that the average farmer does.
Well, the farm's only worth that much because the price of the land has shot up, which they never asked for.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but it would also be like, the Labour Party puts you in the middle of the Colosseum filled with lions, and they say, well, you've got a chance of getting out of it.
Yeah, technically.
It's still immoral to put people in that situation in the first place. And it's worth mentioning as well that the BBC, their Verify unit, which, is a questionably...
They keep
morally
lying.
Questionable thing in the first place.
They just keep lying. They lied about me, they lied about this, they lied about a bunch of other stuff.
So they silently deleted the statement from this guy because they realised that...
it's not true.
Yeah, exactly. And
I wonder if the BBC's truth department has a higher percentage of lies than the BBC as a whole. It wouldn't surprise me.
That would be a very interesting thing to calculate.
Yeah.
It's almost like the incentive structure in the organisation itself isn't necessarily perfect for trying truthful.
Yes. Perhaps it's propaganda, not...
Well, they also just put a known liar in charge of it.
And the funny thing is...
The woman in charge of it lied on her CV to get her job. So, like, it's just... I'm not even joking. It's just crazy.
The funny thing is, as well, the BBC went out of their way to carry water for Starmer, and then he threw them under the bus, unintentionally, by agreeing with Jeremy Clarkson.
Oh.
So, Jeremy Clarkson at the farmers' protest said the BBC are basically just repeating...
The government's own line, yeah.
Exactly. Well, Starmer then said that the BBC was backing him over the inheritance tax raid on the farmers, which is the one thing you wouldn't want to say if the impartial BBC... what you want to do is have this mask of, well, they're a neutral organisation and they're
holding us to
me.
account.
Exactly. So yes,
I mean, Victoria Derbyshire was literally just parroting the government's line back at Clarkson.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. But
no wonder people like us are growing and they're losing whatever it is, 100,000 TV licence payers every quarter.
Mm-hmm. But I think that this isn't going to win him any favours with the people who are going out of their way to carry water for him, because lots of journalists will be paying attention to the fact that the BBC went out of their way to basically promote propaganda for him, and then he unintentionally went out of his way to expose them by just openly saying they're supporting me, which he shouldn't have done because it was stupid. But now the guy who originally made the claim to support Labour has U-turned as well. He has posted this. And he said, actually, I was wrong. I've changed my mind and I've discovered that I can do maths now. And he says, new data on farms and inheritance tax. A third of farm estates over 1.5 million aren't farmers but wealthy people avoiding inheritance tax. But he also says the budget hits farmers too hard and tax avoiders too lightly. It needs to change. So he's still attacking them from a left-wing paradigm there. He's attacking them from the left. But still... it's not looking good for them when this guy, who was supposedly a cheerleader for them, has now turned on them as well. And we're going to see probably a lot more of this going forward, because things you would want to see if a government were to step down because of their unpopularity, you would want to see institutions like the civil service or perhaps the intelligence agencies turning against them, journalists like this guy, and perhaps I'm thinking of people like Liz Truss, the money men, people in, say, the Bank of England, but economic pressures. So you want to see all of these sorts of people turning against them, and that's when the
position becomes untenable.
Yes, when there's a coup. But he posted this in the Tax Policy Association, a very long thing, basically breaking down how their plan isn't very good. And it's also worth mentioning as well, there is another petition ticking ahead as well, specific to farming, which is at 86,000 so far, almost at the 100,000 where it has to be debated in Parliament. And so moving on to the economy, it's not looking good for them either. There seems to be movements towards the money men stabbing Labour in the back.
The Deliveroo economy is going to be roaring though.
I know, yes. So tax rises will make it harder to hire, says the Confederation of British Industry, which you would want to be on your side. And what they've said is also being confirmed by many company bosses, saying that it's putting them off hiring, which is obviously not good for the economy, obviously.
It's not good for workers, is it?
No, it's not good for the population either. And also they're saying it's going to hit growth as well, which is going to prevent businesses from growing.
It just sounds like far-right propaganda from the CBI boss.
Look
at typical far-righter.
Mm-hmm. But do you know what Keir Starmer's doing? He's throwing out a little bit of red meat for the gammons. He's pledged to crack down on people who are gaming the system for benefits, which doesn't make him popular with his own base as well, because they're going to see that for what it is you're throwing out red meat for the gammons. And
that's just, it's so, like, the thing is, he's not doing it because it's the right thing to do, right? People shouldn't be gaming the benefit system. He's doing it because, look, no, we need to ship that money overseas. Ukraine needs that money. Foreign farmers need that money. I mean, the NHS needs to pay for foreign people to come and use the NHS. That's why we're doing it. Like, he's not doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's
But I mean, people on benefits was his core heartland.
Yeah.
He's going after them as well.
Yeah,
he's just out to alienate everyone.
We need to pay for foreigners to live in hotels, so therefore, you're going to have to go without your benefits.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't support either. I'd like to throw it out there.
Sure, but still, if we're going to have benefits, I'd rather it be for British people rather than non-British people.
Those are the days.
Begrudgingly.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the intelligence agencies. So obviously current intelligence agency people cannot comment. And so normally former staff are sort of bellwether for people's attitudes within the intel sphere. And normally these people are a lot more important than people give them credit for. And I think that what Keir Starmer would not want would be someone of prominence coming out, say someone who was formerly a head of one of their organisations coming out and basically calling out their entire means of governing. And I think that a lot of this goes on because past a certain point the Labour Party becomes a liability to the pursuit of the organisation's self-interest, and therefore they turn on it.
Sure.
And that's normally what happens if they feel like, better cut our losses. Well, that's what's happened. So this is the former head of MI6, Richard Dearlove. He said of Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, instead of using our own resources, we're following a crazy plan under Ed Miliband. We need independence, which I actually agree with.
Well, yeah, obviously. But, Ed Miliband's bonkers. And he's gone mad. And he's convinced that if we can get to net zero by 2030, the world will be saved. It's like, you are insane, Ed.
Yes.
And then he says of David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, Lammy has too much baggage. He'll be involved in the special relationship, but not in any meaningful way.
Well, he called Trump a Nazi for 8 years.
Exactly. And then on cuts to defence, he said defence should be at the very top of the government's agenda, even above the NHS, but it isn't.
Well, in the midst of Keir Starmer stoking a war with Russia.
Exactly.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, he says that Keir Starmer is not taking domestic issues seriously. Might be something to do with the fact he's shipping all of this money abroad instead of, dealing with things at home. And he says directly here, Starmer is jumping on and off planes when there are serious issues at home. It's ridiculous. There's some pretty strong words from the former head of MI6.
Yeah, but, Starmer's not really a national politician, is he?
No.
National politician.
That is very true. So this poses the question then, will a general election happen anytime soon? And I think that all of Starmer's actions have indicated that he will ignore this, and we'll play a clip of him pretty much saying so.
Yes.
However, these sorts of things are not useless. And I'd like to play a short clip of Ben Habib on GB News speaking about what happens, because I think he's taking the view of the petition's important, but putting economic pressure on the Labour Party will be the sort of straw that breaks the camel's back. And I think that all of these sorts of things will add up slowly. Lots of people will turn on them and they'll find that they have no friends left. And then there'll be a comparable thing to that of Liz Truss, where the institutions just turn on them and then they can't do anything and they're forced to.
Yeah, just before you do, because this was the most irritating midwit response to this petition that I saw all of last night. It was loads of people coming out and saying, oh, he's not going to call an election just because you put up a petition.
Kidding.
It's like, yeah, obviously. So it's not going to have the first order effect, but there were secondary and tertiary effects that will flow from this. Delegitimisation, it makes him have to focus more on the response that his policies are having against simply rolling them out. So, yeah, it is a very important petition, but yes, to all the midwits out there, and even worse, if you're in the comments, no, it's not going to call a bloody general election on the basis of it.
No, but the point is to put pressure on him. So when he's in the Starmer bunker, he's seeing all of the inputs that they get are negative, 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 negative. Oh, there's a protest here. Oh, there's a petition here. Oh, the finances are going down the tube. Negative, negative, negative. Put pressure on them so they're in their little Führer bunker and hopefully it collapses.
Yes.
That's what we're asking for. That's what the point is.
So here's what Habib said, which I thought was quite good.
He calls it stability. Ben Habib.
Well, I don't think this petition will result in a general election, even if it got to 9.7 million people voting in favour of another election. That's the same number of votes that Labour got, so that would be interesting. But I think there's people say to me, Ben, there's no chance of this government giving up its huge majority, no matter what happens between now and 2029. And I don't agree. I think that there are pressures that can come to bear that could force this government back to the electorate. And the most obvious one is a collapse in the economy. And I think some of the measures taken by Rachel Reeves already are not playing out the way she expected them to play out. Sterling, I don't know if people are watching, but sterling is down 7% against the dollar in the last 3 months. That's a very significant move in sterling. And that's not a general strengthening of the dollar. That is sterling weakening on its own. That is basically people saying they don't want to buy British products. They don't want to buy British debt, British investments. And a crucial component of this government being able to finance itself is foreigners buying British bonds. And they don't need to buy British bonds. You know, most people, as investors, have to have some exposure to US treasuries because the dollar is the currency of the world. But the sterling isn't. It's not the reserve currency of the world. So people don't have to buy our bonds. And there's a very, very real possibility that she's got her numbers wrong, that she will need to borrow more money than she says she's going to have to borrow, that growth will go through the floor. We will be in a recession. In fact, all the indicators are that we're heading into a recession. Unemployment will rise. And even if they put up interest rates, they won't be able to get people to buy British government bonds. Then you have the United Kingdom going off to the IMF, cap in hand, saying, please, can we have a bailout? And that would be a disaster for any government. And I think that you can then force a general election on a government if they absolutely collapse the economy.
What do we think about that? Because I think it's
possible.
I think it's a pretty compelling argument by that point, isn't it? And I think that that's the direction that the economy is going in. Every metric I've seen has suggested.
I mean, it was already the case after the budget, bond yields went up. So effectively the price of the underlying bond went down, meaning that they need to issue more of them, so meaning that their debt costs have gone up. So that process was already playing out.
So it's just a matter of time, really.
It is definitely possible that the political position in the Labour Party becomes so untenable. Like you said, the institutions don't want to or can't respond. There's absolutely no public support. That Keir Starmer will end up essentially being isolated, again, in his little Fuhrer bunker with his little inner circle, as the world around them has just changed so significantly that they can't maintain their position. So Keir Starmer can be blockheaded about it all he wants, but things happen whether he likes it or not.
That is very true. And I think that to sort of summarise what I think, I don't think the petition is going to be directly the thing that might...
It's just a straw on the camel's back.
It is, yeah. And it's adding more and more pressure. And lots of these institutions now are seemingly turning on him in significant ways. You know, you're seeing intelligence agencies, you're seeing economic measures, you're seeing some journalists that have had their noses put out.
But moreover, he's got to think of the future of his own party. Because, okay, let's assume that somehow he manages to ride this out for 5 years. 5 years. What does the Labour Party's prospects look like after 5 years of just revulsive governance, right? Where the economy's been destroyed, people have just not been listened to, and there have been, multiple gargantuan protests, multiple gargantuan petitions. People are just, no, I'm done with the Labour Party. I hate Keir Starmer. I'm done with them. What do they look like? Well, they look like worse than the Conservative.
Annihilation of the Labour Party is on the cards.
Yes.
It is
a
survival thing.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, he will eventually have to come back to the electorate. It's like, okay, well, look what you
and things like this are good because what it does is it erodes political capital, and there will be things that they want. So there are things that they can do. They can easily twiddle the dials they got in front of them. There are other things they want to do, but they require buy-in from other parties in order to get the more radical elements of the agenda across. And if they lack the political capital being eroded by something like this, they are unable to get that buy-in, and therefore the set of options in front of them are constrained. So it's a good.
Of course, they do have a sizable majority as well, so there is potential for revolts within the party.
If you need to reach out to other groups, who knows who they might be? It might be the bond market, it might be the Lords. I mean, it could be a huge number of organisations they need to reach out to.
Investors.
Exactly. And they can't get the buy-in because they lack that political capital.
And other members of Reform are basically pointing this out, that signing the petition may not force an election, but it will definitely send a message, which I think is the most reasonable point out of all of this.
Did Keir Starmer like, I can hear a message. Maybe I should listen to it.
And let's hear what he had to say, shall we? it activated
Are you
the
now
Starmer
feeling
program.
the pressure? Because I think there's a petition
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
currently
Your approval
online
ratings have dropped.
of 1.9 people who want the election
It's
to
over
go
2
again.
million. It's now
Is
over
it 2
yeah,
million
it's
now?
now just over 2 million.
Do you feel the pressure?
Look, I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There will be plenty of people who didn't want us in the first place. So look, what I focus is the decisions that I have to make every day.
But
and it's a bit like opposition.
Surely you want us, the public, to trust you, to like you, to think he's the man for the job, he's doing what he needs to do. Your approval rating is lower than Nigel Farage's right now, which even saying it to the Prime Minister of the country I live in, that I pay tax in, to say your approval rate is lower than Nigel Farage, that's disappointing. Whoever I support.
The thing is, if you make your mind up, as I have done, that we're going to do the difficult things first, then I think it's inevitable that people do feel they're difficult decisions. I mean, I understand that.
God, he's so soulless.
Yeah. But the expression on his face is so weird. Like he was having genuine trouble computing that he had intransigent opposition of his own making after only 5 months in government. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just didn't seem to understand.
His unwillingness to be pragmatic, I think, will be one of the things that sows the seeds of his destruction.
And he doesn't seem to understand that he doesn't have a mandate for the radical changes that he's imposing on us. He doesn't have a mandate for this.
He got fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn did.
Yeah.
And that was a resounding defeat. It's just that everyone else was just more unpopular.
Yeah. And like he got 20% of the potential electorate.
He wasn't the most loved, he was the least hated at the time.
I don't even know if he was the least hated. I think it was the conflict between Farage and the Conservatives that screwed him.
That's true.
Because they basically took a third of the Conservative
Split the vote, yeah.
Well, plus they probably got half of that vote just because people voted Labour last time and they voted Labour the time before that, and it's just ingrained behaviour for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, I don't think that there's going to be an end to it, but it seems like there is some sort of something in the works here to remove the Labour Party. It does seem to be possible, and it seems that it's becoming more and more likely. However, how long they'll cling on to power, we don't know yet.